Well, hello, everybody. We've got an interesting topic today. It has to do with the difference between our emotional responses to things and our logical responses to things. And they're quite different. And it's very important and able to be thorough and do well with our optimal EFT course and our process, unseen therapists, and so on. And I'm joined today by Mary McGrory. And Mary is one of our more accomplished optimal EFT course members, very good at this process. It has learned it as well or better than almost everybody. And she's going to help me with some concepts about this emotional versus logical process. So, Mary, there you are. Say hello.
Hello.
Okay. Just by background, how long have you been an OEFTer?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say going on 4 years now.
4 years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Great.
in part.
And you're a member of several of our practice groups, and to, just that's not a regular topic, but talk just for a moment about practice groups and their use, would you?
Yeah, sure. My gosh. Practice groups have completely radically changed the way I practice optimal EFT and how I work on myself, the healing that I receive, the healing that I give. I have gleaned so much experience and information from working with other people who practice optimal EFT. Um, the feeling of being on my own and trying to figure it all out has completely disappeared. I feel really like I'm part of the community now. Um, it's a great place to learn. I struggled for a long time to try and get through the 30 lessons on my own. And that's when I first proposed setting up a group to practice the 30 lessons. And we did them, and we've moved on to the immersification process. And I've learned so much. Words don't even go there. And I feel like so much more of an active member within the optimal EFT community. So no regrets there. Great idea. And I've
Yeah,
met some wonderful people.
and one of the advantages of our members getting together and having these practice groups is love is best. Love is more powerful when shared.
Yes.
So you get to work on your own issues, etc. Okay, we'll leave that one aside because we have another topic to get to today. Okay, and let me start off. We come at this from a little different angle, so I want our audience to hear both sides of this. So let me start off with mine, then you bring in yours, and then we'll discuss that however it goes. Okay.
Yeah, great.
So oftentimes when I'm speaking with a client and we're dealing on some emotional issue, let's say they were somehow abused when they were children. That happens a lot with people. And here they are adults and a number of issues because they haven't resolved things in the past. And so one of the things they may say to me is things like, I'm just not good enough. I don't feel good enough. Or I'm not lovable. I don't count. Something's wrong with me. And of course, a young child picks that kind of thing up emotionally very young if they are abused along the way. What else could they do? But now that they're an adult, I will say to them, well, logically, are you good enough? Logically, not emotionally. We understand what your emotional response is, but logically, are you lovable? Do you count? And almost always I say, well, yeah, I have friends, and yes, I function in the world, and yeah, but the emotional result, the emotional reaction is different because we haven't resolved these specific events and all the things that went on in the past that give rise to your current emotional response. Today something happens and you replay something subconsciously from a long time ago, and you get I'm not lovable, I shouldn't speak up, all these other limits that come along. So what we do, this is my approach anyway, is we'll go back to the specific events that give rise to the limits currently. We'll go way back in time, bring in unseen therapists, collapse, 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 collapse. As we do, the emotional responses behind I'm not good enough, I don't count, I'm not lovable, and so on, start to fade. They don't replay. And the better we do this, the less they replay, and the less they are limits, and you can move these limits off to zero. Anyway, that's my approach. Now, you have a little different way of going about that, a little different concept of even thinking about this. So I'm going to put the ball in your lap, Mary. How do you see it?
It's not that I have a different way of going about it. I think in preparing to talk about this, I started thinking about it more deeply, and I realized that there are more advantages to this. It isn't just the fact that, logically we see things differently. It's about the fact that, when we are traumatized, when we have been hurt, or whatever the story may be, the emotions can be intense. And when we try to express this to other people, then they may think that we're being over dramatic, or that we were just being difficult, or, they can put us down and make us feel more insecure about our emotional way of reacting to a situation, whether it be recent or old. When you work with someone who recognizes this, whether it be within a group or with a client or a therapist, there's so much relief in being heard, and somebody actually saying, okay, well, logically, that that's not true, but emotionally, you are feeling these emotions intensely, viscerally, even sometimes. And let's work at that. Let's look at that. Let's check out, what emotions are you feeling and how intensely are you feeling it? So you feel respected. You feel heard. You feel like what you're experiencing is actually being recognized and true to a certain extent, whereas a lot of people in society will try to talk you down and say, but logically that can't be right, and they'll try to logically convince you out of your emotional reaction. But no logic can replace what you're feeling emotionally, because it's a completely different aspect. It's a different way of experiencing things. So this confirmation of your emotions is very important. This is what gives us the feeling that we are okay feeling our emotions.
Yeah. And to blend that with what I was saying, yes, we want to feel okay with the emotions. We also want to remove, if we can, the unnecessary part of it, the trauma part of it, the sting of it, so it doesn't keep replaying all the time, and you're free to experience life as you would like to do it, rather than having this emotional baggage. That's where we get down to specific events and so on. Does that fit with you? Do you have other thoughts?
Yeah. Yes, it's a very good way of finding specific events. If somebody is acting up emotionally and somebody else says, well, logically you shouldn't feel that way. For example, life is dangerous. Okay. I'm too scared to go outside. I've got agoraphobia, or I need to check the door 20,000 times before I can go out, trying to control the situation. So I'm don't feel safe. And if somebody says to me, or if the belief, because a lot of it is around beliefs. Okay.
Sure.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
within a session, we may discover that there is this belief life is dangerous. And we could have a conversation saying, well, you can walk down the street to the shop and you'll probably be safe enough to walk back again. So life isn't always dangerous. So slowly but surely you minimize the size of the belief, like everything in life is dangerous, and you bring it down to a more, you narrow it down more and more to where the origin of the trauma comes from, the actual event that the person experienced.
Sure.
Whenever that gave them this belief. So it is a very good way into discovering the aspects and the emotions. And then we measure, so what emotions are you feeling around this, and what happened? And then we invite in the unseen therapist and all her beautiful love, and she brings in healing, and however long that takes. But
yeah,
there is an advantage, the frustration of being told by people that you shouldn't feel so strongly about things is like a double trauma. you're having an emotional reaction to your trauma, and then that's not acceptable. How could you be so dramatic? Control yourself, so that's pushing you down even further. So through the session, through the loving acceptance of your emotions allows you to then access the aspects, bring in healing, which allows understanding, which then leads to compassion, which then can lead to forgiveness. This is really, really important. That's another point I wanted to speak to you about, was logic and emotions can prevent forgiveness. Because, when society says to you, you should forgive that person, and you should forgive the person because you'll be freer afterwards, but you can't forgive the person. Emotionally, it's just too strong for you.
Sure.
So as you start healing, not finished, as you start healing the emotions, and that brings in that understanding, which then leads to compassion, then the forgiveness happens naturally. You can't choose to forgive. So that can stand in the way of forgiveness as well.
And forgiveness is a whole other topic. Yes. But this is right on. But I want to comment just a little bit on something you've said a couple of times here. It's sort of a lay version of psychology that people tend to use with this phrase, "Oh, you shouldn't feel that way." Don't feel. That happens a lot. Just don't feel that way. Okay. But how do you not feel?
Calm down. Stop being so emotional. Calm down. Like you've got this magic button that you can just press and, okay, I'm calm now.
Yeah. And we don't have that magic button because we are automatically replaying this. We're replaying these emotional things, which are illogical most of the time. Okay. So we replay these things, but we really have to do, and we're just repeating ourselves here. I just want to make the point really well. We need to go back to where those emotions started, specific events, oftentimes childhood and so on. And that's where unseen therapists can come in so efficiently and so beautifully to collapse those once upon a time things. It's not like you forget the memory, but the sting gone. Sting gone. Okay. Peace. Okay. And then you start behaving logically rather than emotionally. Okay. The logic takes over. I really am good enough. So there. Okay.
Yeah. When you're in the emotional charge, you cannot possibly see, or it's really, really difficult to see anybody else's perspective, no matter what age the trauma happens at, but particularly when you're a child. So you only remember what you experienced, and it's like you can only see the memory again through the eyes of a child, through the naivety of the child. So you can't possibly see the bigger picture. So logic just isn't going to happen until the emotional charge has been calmed by the unseen therapist, lots of love brought in, lots of whatever comes up, because as we start going in there and removing stuff, more emotions will bubble up until the whole story has calmed down. And once it's calmed down, it's happened to me 100 times and to so many clients and people I work with. It's like you take the blinkers off on a horse. It's like your perspective opens up and suddenly you see the situation completely differently. And it's like you're relieved because now you see it through your own eyes with all the life experience you have today from a calm perspective. It's not always so perfect the way I'm describing it. It can be a bumpy ride sometimes, but we do get there in the end, where you get that freedom to re-look at the situation from who you are today, from your own life experience, from a calm place, and then you can choose to see it differently or choose what you want to believe in a different way.
Wonderful. For those interested, I'm looking at Mary's name underneath her video, and the email address, if you want to contact her, is tranquilatLast@gmail.com. Okay, you have to write it down and then write her. But you're welcome to have people ask you questions. Correct?
Absolutely, no problem. And it's my Facebook professional Facebook page as well, Tranquil at Last. So with pleasure.
Right. Great.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, with that in mind, thank you, Mary, Thank everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank